Good evening, my washers and dryers. Are we even still doing that? I don't know. I basically fell off the face of the earth after I put on my Joel de video because the job, travel, family, whatever. I simply gave up. So I figured I'd just leave it till January because as long as people are still writing 2022 for their dates, I'm still good. I wanted to talk about the things that I enjoyed last year because how do you measure a year? With the media you consumed. I have a nice warm can of Diet Mountain Dew and we're just gonna hang out and chat. Maybe you'll find some cool recommendations. Maybe you've seen some of these things. Let me know. So the first thing I wanted to talk about were live action television. And live action television in the age of the post-prestige television is really good. There's some great stuff out there. And one of the first things that I really enjoyed was Fleabag on Prime. Fleabag follows Fleabag and her various misadventures. It's written by and stars Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is absolutely hilarious. But the whole cast is hilarious. And I watched season 1, loved it. Watched season 2. I think I like season 2 even more. Because I like the things that she introduces to the show. I especially love Andrew Scott as the hot priest. I was initially skeptical when we showed off the hot priest. I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be a stereotypical character, but I should have known better. I should have known better because he was actually extremely well written, and I personally resonated with kind of the arc that he himself goes on. So it's very good. You've probably seen it, but if you haven't, it's pretty good.
Please be seated.
And also with you.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, where we have like great shows, fantastic writing, and dramatic turns, the Cobra Kai was another one of my favorite live action shows, and we actually got 2 seasons in 2022. I think we had like season 4 at the start of the year, and then season 5 at the end of the year, and I said it in my original like review of the show when I think only 3 seasons were out, and I'll say it again now. It's not a good show, but it is a great show, and every single episode is just incredible. It's exactly what it needs to be. It's goofy, it's campy, and they're having a lot of fun. Thomas Ian Griffith as Terry Silver is immaculate. He is all charisma, all cheese, and I have a great time whenever he's on screen. I continue to feel very good about what the creators are doing with bringing in old content and reinserting it into the narrative of Cobra Kai as a show, and they do a good job of balancing the nostalgia with the current stuff, which, as we've seen from a lot of reboots and continue to see with a lot of reboots, that's really hard. Also on Netflix, and kind of flipping back to the other end of the spectrum of just incredibly well-written things, is Dark from Berenbo Abdar and Janse Friese. This is a German language show that is incredible. It is the best show I can't talk about, because to talk about it in any capacity is to spoil the entirety. So I will say, if you enjoyed the Stranger Things small town weirdness, this will definitely hold your interest. And the most I can say is that it is probably the best. No, I can't even say that. Shoot. The casting is immaculate. We see flashback sequences, and the casting for like the younger versions of certain characters and their older selves is incredibly well done. You can tell, even if you're still not 100% sure on the names, you can tell who certain characters are supposed to be. And I felt a lot better because I watch a lot of anime, and sometimes I feel bad when my American brain can't keep up with all of the Japanese names. But the fact that I was having to sit there and say the character names repeatedly and who their connections were, I felt a lot better because I was like, oh, it's just because I'm stupid. But that being said, Dark is incredible, and I would also recommend 1899, but they literally canceled it after the first season, and I'm so bummed. Rest in peace, 1899, gone too soon. So definitely watch Dark. It is a completed series, 3 seasons, some of the best television ever, and it is so good. I cannot emphasize enough. Of all the things that I mentioned, this is probably the one thing that I'm like, no, actually watch this, because like my husband and I talk about it all the time, but we need more people to talk about it with. actual play is a very popular thing online right now, especially in Dungeons and Dragons spheres, Critical Role, The Adventure Zone, stuff like that. Those are really popular for people who want to watch Dungeons and Dragons being played. But one of the surprise entries, I think, into kind of that whole realm is Dropout, formerly College Humor. Dropout rebranded itself right at the start of the pandemic and became Dropout, and one of the flagship things they introduced was Dimension 20, which is their Dungeons and Dragons shows. And while Brennan Lee Mulligan is probably the most popular GM on that series, the one that they released this year, A Court of Fey and Flowers, is incredible. Game mastered by Abria Iyengar, it is a take on Regency romance in the realm of the Fae, and it's immaculate. One thing I will mention is that it is all kind of improv live theater. Well, not live theater because they still edit it for content, but it's all improv. Abria has a plan that she's trying to introduce, but all of the characters are making up their dialogue, making up their choices on the go and in the moment. The amount of emotion that these characters can conjure in the weirdest of circumstances is incredible to me. And a thing that has happened with A Court of Fey and Flowers more so than any other actual play show that I have watched is I forget these are players and actors. And that has never happened for me with an actual play series before. Like, anytime we watch Critical Role, I'm very conscious of the fact that it's Laura Bailey or it's Liam O'Brien. But here, I was able to watch people disappear into, like, hobgoblins and bird people, where I just completely forgot they were humans. And there's so many, like, excellent performances that I can't single any of them out, but I'm going to anyway. Omar as Prince Antira is fantastic. I think he does a great job of making Antira this like ball of nerves. He plays awkward but charming in a way that isn't like quirky and fun. And I really appreciate what he brings to that role.
You don't have to sort of share your failures so aloud in front of everyone.
I see. In fact, I take it back. Instead, I will share one of my greatest achievements. One time I folded 100 paper bats.
Sorry, bags?
Oh, if only. Those are tough because you have to get the sides as well. No, bats.
Folded 100 paper bats.
Yes. Well, they weren't bats before, but once I folded them, they became bats. So
Luke Wilson and Emily Axford as the Lords of the Wing. Some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen in anything. It's so funny. Lou Wilson plays a rake that you're a little afraid of, a little enticed by. It's such a brilliant combination. And Emily Axford is she's one of the sharpest players of the game in general. And while a lot of these actual plays are 5e Dungeons and Dragons, and this one's loosely 5e, there's some other systems that they're employing. It's excellent stuff. I was gasping and genuinely shocked at certain plot points. It's extremely well done.
Grandfather, he is alive, but also looking down on us.
Right. So when we look to the sky, it's not because he passed, it's because we live in the sky.
Yes, the Lords of the Wing are powerful as ever. Grandfather is very much alive.
Yes! Grandfather's alive!
And the last live action show that I really got into this year was House of the Dragon on HBO. It's no secret that everyone got burned on Game of Thrones, which only happened in 2019. I heard that date the other day and it threw me through a loop because it seems like forever ago. But yeah, I guess 4 years ago, Game of Thrones Season 8 came and absolutely ruined any goodwill that anyone could possibly have for it. But then House of the Dragon came around and said, not really. You still care. And yeah, I didn't watch Game of Thrones when it was coming out. I did go back and watch like the first 4 seasons, and by that point I had seen all that I needed to see, so I quit. And I wasn't like into Game of Thrones. I wasn't like excited for the show, but the trailers looked fun, and sitting down to watching it was great. We saw most of it after it had already premiered, which made it so much easier to just binge. But by the time the finale came out, we drove home from our wedding and like jumped into bed to watch the finale. So it was a lot of fun. Harrowing stuff. If you have any ick on pregnancy in general, maybe skip it. But if you're looking for really messy political drama, this is where it's at. One of the things that really surprised me about the show was the casting of Paddy Considine as King Viserys Targaryen the First. Because when I saw Paddy Considine, I'm more familiar with his work in the Cornetto trilogy from Edgar Wright, so I'm more familiar with him as a comic actor. And so I was expecting the character to be very goofy, to be the comic relief, to be a giant screw up. But what I got from him was a performance of a tragic, almost noble figure, trying to do his best, hold his family together, hold the realm together, and it just being a task too insurmountable for anyone, let alone him.
So I can be a remedy for your political headaches.
You are my political headache.
And Emma Darcy as Rhaenyra. I know a lot of people really like Millie Alcock, and she's also fantastic, but I do really want to highlight Emma Darcy. I like what they bring to the performance. I like their voice and the way they hold their face and their posture. There's some great stuff on the show. And yeah, I think I'm very excited for season 2, and I'm stoked. I'm on board, and I may be signing myself up for a lot of heartbreak when we get towards the end, but for season 1, that's just good TV. And now we're going to talk about the animated stuff that really stuck with me. And this is definitely the longer list because I watched and read a lot of things, but it's all good. That's why it's on this list. That's the whole point. I don't know. But the first thing I want to talk about is Attack on Titan because, duh. We're in season 4 part 2 and we have season 4 part 3 coming out in like a matter of weeks. It may be out before this is. I don't know. But it's still good. It's still good content. It's an intense show, but also one of, I think, the best flagship anime out there. I think if you are skeptical of anime, this may or may not be the one to start with. It's one that I've tried to make videos about and have just utterly failed because there's so much going on. There's so much to talk about. And I, in my very novice stage, I don't feel comfortable talking about all of it with the platform that I have, so I don't. But I will talk about how much I enjoy it. I enjoy the characters. Jean holds my heart. I even have a sticker of Jean. Yeah, Jean Kirkstein, my boy. He's great. I think he has grown into a great secondary protagonist for the show. Regardless of what happens, I hope he survives by the end, and if you spoil it for me, I will ban you for life. Smiling Friends. Smiling Friends is from Zach Hadel and Michael Cusack, and Zach Hadel I've watched for years on Oni Plays, and it's really cool to see him in the show, to see his work and Michael Cusack's work. Smiling Friends follows Pim and Charlie, who work for the company Smiling Friends, and their whole bit is they go and they find people to help make them laugh. In a kind of golden age of adult cartoons, this one stands out above the rest because it is different. It's not trying so hard to be the same kind of prestige drama in the way of like BoJack Horseman, in the sense that it's not trying to do the very serious and grounded drama of some of those shows, but instead offers an almost optimistic take, and it's genuinely funny. I have laughed out loud so much at so many dumb things. Every time I see Jeremy get punched to smooth animation, I die. It's so genuinely funny.
Okay, I'm almost there. I think the biggest surprises are behind me. Dude, I warned you. I said I was gonna do that if you did that again.
Meppa decided to take on so many things because their other major project for this year was Chainsaw Man, and of course I watched it, because why wouldn't I? Chainsaw Man follows Denji, who bonds with the Chainsaw Devil to become the dog of public safety to help take out devils. It's great. It's definitely different from the manga from what I understand, but I really enjoy everything that they bring to it. I enjoy the characters a lot. I like Denji, Power, and Aki and the way their interactions go. I love Kishibe. I love Kishibe interacting with Denji and Power. And the opening is absolutely to die for because of all of the film references. I think it's very clever and very well done. I enjoy it a lot. The other big flagship anime this year was Spy Family. I always watch a Spy Family episode and I feel so much better afterwards. It follows Agent Twilight, who is working for a country that is on the brink of war with another country, and he infiltrates the other country and has to build a fake family to get into this prestigious school in order to meet important people in the government and in the military in order to help prevent this war from happening. And he finds a woman named Dior, and she becomes his fake wife, and he doesn't know that she is an assassin called the Thorn Princess, and he adopts Anya, who is a 6-year-old telepath who is trying to keep that a secret from her fake family. And it's great. It's so cute. It's so funny. The performances are excellent. Like, a thing that I've come to appreciate in a lot of anime is just how good the voice acting is. And this one is full of fantastic performances. The woman who voices Anya does a great job of making her sound realistically like a 6-year-old, but she's consistently one of the funniest things about this series. But also just subtler performances from Agent Twilight and from Yor. Their voice actors are also tremendous, and I'm looking forward to season 2, and I'm looking forward to the movie because I have fun. This year was definitely the year that I beat myself up over trying to have like a consistent walking routine. But one of the things that I did when I was going, for 2 weeks consistently, is I would watch Black Clover, and I've come to really enjoy Black Clover. It is about Asta, who lives in a world where everyone has magic except for him. And when he goes and takes the magic exam to become a magic knight, he still gets a grimoire, which shouldn't happen because he has no magic. But he wants to become the Wizard King, and he wants to become the Wizard King before his best friend Yuno can. So Asta joins up with the Magic Knights, known as the Black Bulls, which are generally like the bottom of the barrel of the Magic Knights, while Yuno gets to join, I believe, the Golden Knights, who are the best ones, Natch. And I don't know, I'm highlighting this one because I do genuinely enjoy watching it. And there's not really much else to say. It's pretty standard shonen anime, but I'm having a lot of fun. Yami Sukihiro is incredible. Oh my gosh, that's how it happened. So the way it happened is I was on my Instagram Explore page, right? And the thing that got my attention there, and I don't know if it'll focus, can't read it, it says when he's a DILF. And I recognize several of these gentlemen. I recognize a lot of them, but that one down in the middle, I didn't recognize him, so I was scouring. I was jumping through the tags. I was trying to figure out who it was, and I found Black Clover. So I go on TV Tropes because that's, I think, the easiest way to figure out who they are. So I get to that, but it gives me a list of a bunch of characters. I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know who any of them are. So I look and I'm like, fine, we'll go to Yami Sukihiro. That looks like a thing. And I found him. I found the guy. And there he is. There's Yami Sukihiro. Find out he's voiced by Junichi Suabe, who's one of my favorite voice actors. So that was another point of his favor. And then I found out he's got the alcoholic trope on his page. And I was like, the universe can't keep getting away with this. So did I watch it because of Yami? Yes. Have I continued to watch it because of Yami? I don't know. The last episodes that I watched were kind of about Yami, and they were great. So I'm going to keep watching Black Clover. This isn't a recommendation. This is me just gushing about a show that I'm very much enjoying. After that, perhaps the favorite in the anime/manga category is Fate Zero. Fate Zero is a part of the Fate universe, which is a very big and convoluted series of visual novels and movies and anime and video games and gacha games and light novels and more. There are definitely movies too. But it's all about this thing called the Holy Grail War, where mages come and compete. They summon servants to help them. I talk about it briefly at the end of my Joel de Rey video. That's where that whole video got started, was because of Fate Zero, which is the prequel series to all of this, and it's about setting up the events of Fate's Day night. This show is just great all around. I loved it from start to finish. The characters are fantastic. I would say this has the best ensemble of this section for sure. The openings slap. And I mean, there's so many good characters and so many good plot threads and so many interesting places the story goes that it's impossible for me to like pick a fate. Just kidding, it's Waver Velvet and Ryder. The show has intrigue, it has betrayal. I love the roles that every character plays. The Karia stuff, love that. The Mattows, I'm loving Heaven's Field because of the Mattows, because if you give me a messed up ancient family that's just a little bit creepy, I will eat that up. I will eat it to pieces. I need to redo my bingo sheet because this is another thing that I love. If you know nothing about the Fate universe, I have no idea what this show will feel like for you. Again, I'm not saying these are all recommendations. I'm just saying this made my year. This was great. I have not stopped thinking about Fate Zero, and every magical tournament arc is just trying to be as good as Fate Zero. Demon Slayer, Entertainment District arc. So Demon Slayer is a really good show. It's a really popular show that's also from the same studio as the Fate series. But Demon Slayer follows Tanjiro as he tries to slay demons in order to help save his sister Nezuko, who is the only survivor after their entire family was killed by demons. But she's got a little bit of demon blood in her that he needs to deal with. So Demon Slayer starts out kind of slow. I knew it was good, but then we hit Entertainment District arc, where Tengen Uzui was the new mentor figure for this. We split the gang up to succeed in their own special ways, and that stuff was so good. I loved Entertainment District arc, maybe because it was interesting to see these characters in more of a city setting, to see them be incognito and in disguise, see characters like Inosuke be very good at pretending to be a girl, see Tanjiro just being a sweet little guy. But the thing that I will say for Entertainment District arc that really bumped this up in terms of just elevating it above everything else that came before it is the climax. Getting into the climax was the best jaw-dropping moment I have had watching a thing. Oh my goodness, I wasn't expecting it. The reveal was incredible, and this isn't a spoiler because you have no context. So I loved Entertainment District arc, and I think it bumped the whole series up just in terms of how I feel about it. Like, I'm much more excited for things like Swordsmith Village arc. I'm way more excited for stuff like that now because Entertainment District arc was so good, and I think I'm going to be riding that hype in through the subsequent arcs. Yeah, it's just good storytelling. I really enjoy historical fantasy. I like when we take the fantasy elements and we put them in a different time period. I think that's really cool, and yeah, I enjoy what Demon Slayer is doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. Otakoi, Love is Hard for Otaku, both the anime and the manga. I actually read all of the manga after watching the show. So a big gripe that I think a lot of people have when they get to be like my age and older is all of the anime that's out there features teenage protagonists, and they're all in high school, and it can be really hard to relate or really invest in those kinds of stories because it's so far back in our minds. We don't want to relive those days anymore. And that's where things like Otakoi step in, where Otakoi is about Narumi and Hirotaka. They were childhood friends who kind of parted ways. They didn't see each other for a while, and they reconnect at work. And not only do they reconnect at work, they realize that they're both very nerdy. And while Hirotaka doesn't care if people know that he's a nerd, Narumi doesn't want people to know that she's a nerd, but they kind of sort of start to get dating. And while they're trying to figure out their relationship, they also have like their bosses are also dating. And I loved it. It was so cute. I try not to disparage the romance genre because I don't think that's fair, but I have yet to really find romance stories that really resonate and connect with me and ones that I've wanted to read. And Otakoi is one of the rare instances where I loved the romance start to finish. I really love what happens. They're so cute, and it's such a refreshing take on it. It feels extremely grounded and realistic, where the issues are more what we conjure in our own minds, where we project what the other person is feeling, or where we're afraid of where we are in a relationship and we don't want to ruin it, but we don't want to like admit true feelings. And it's just extremely sweet. If you want a good romance story, if you want a good office workplace story, if you want something that's, you know, up your alley, if you're also into anime and manga, this story had a lot of references that I really enjoyed. But yeah, I had a great time with this one. It makes me sad that there's not more to it, but if the author ever comes out with anything else, I'm sure I will look it up. Witch Hat Atelier, that has an anime adaptation coming out at some point, is just cute. It's one of the sweetest, most beautifully drawn manga I've ever read. It follows Coco, who is a young girl who decides to become a witch to save her mother after her mother is turned into stone because Coco was messing around with magic she didn't know anything about. It's gorgeous. It's so well done. The character designs are some of the sweetest character designs. I love the way magic is presented. It's explained very thoroughly, but it's still very simple and very elegant. I really like the journey that Coco goes on. And one of the things that I really like is they're introducing it now, is how her mentor definitely has good intentions, but he also has selfish intentions. And we're in volume 10 right now, and we're starting to see those kind of clash and work against each other, which makes me very excited for volume 11 and anything else that may come after that. Orugio is probably my favorite character. I love kind of the scruffy, tired, gruff character who is still very much caring about the children, but he can't be bothered to be nice about it. But I really like what the series is doing, and I think it has a good shot. It's getting a lot of popularity, and I think it's entirely deserved, so I hope more people look into it and enjoy it as much as I have. I watch a lot of YouTube, and occasionally there will be a thing that sweeps through a lot of commentary channels where people want to do a deep dive into a little show. And the one that caught my eye, because Saber Spark reviewed it and then another channel reviewed it, was Moral Oral, which is a show I had never heard of before. Through the reviews, I was like, okay, you have my attention. I'll look it up and start watching it. And oh my goodness. So Moral Oral is from Dinos Stamatopoulos on Adult Swim. It ran from like 2006 to 2008. And it is a satire about Midwestern American evangelical Christianity. And it is sharp. It is biting. It walked so BoJack Horseman could run. It centers on Oral, who is he's an 11-year-old boy who loves his family, who loves Jesus, and he really takes the verse to heart that says, you know, whatever you eat, you drink, or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. He takes that and he runs with it, so that now it includes raising the dead and smoking crack, because he misinterprets the things that the grown-ups in his life tell him, and that doesn't stop him. He's still a very optimistic, upbeat kid, and he's just doing his best. He's having fun, but he's surrounded by a bunch of cynical, immature, selfish adults who mislead Oral into doing things that are very bad. As we get into season 2 and season 3, the consequences of season 1 start to catch up with the characters, and we get to learn more, and it takes a dark psychological turn, and it's fantastic. The performances in that show are so well done, but I especially want to highlight Scott Adsit as Clay Puppington, Oral's dad. I am a connoisseur of alcoholics. I will watch or read anything if I get even a little bit of a sense that a character might become intoxicated at one point. I don't know why. Don't ask a psychiatrist to evaluate that. But when it comes to alcoholic / abusive parents, a lot of the instances I see, it's almost, for lack of a better word, cartoonish. Nature Part 1 and Part 2 was some of the scariest television I watched this year because you could hear a pin drop through certain scenes. It's so well done, and Scott Adsit brings a horrible, icky, oily charisma to the character that he's so monstrous. He's probably the best villain of anything I've mentioned so far, which, looking back on some of the things I've mentioned so far, is saying a lot. In a world where Christian satire has gotten so bad, it's just not very good. Having a show like this was good. I really enjoyed this show. It's one that I may rewatch. It's one that I would like to talk about in more depth. But we'll see.
Gee, I don't know, Reverend. What makes someone not happy?
Gee, I don't know, Oral. Life.
And the last show I want to talk about in the animation category is one that I did not think I would like, and that is Vinland Saga. Vinland Saga is based on the manga by Makoto Yukimura, which follows Thorfinn, who is a young lad looking to get revenge for his father's murder. And in order to do that, he goes with his father's murderer. So Vinland Saga is also kind of a slow burn of a historical epic. Everything that we see in season 1 is technically just prologue, but what we see there is this twisted ache of revenge, corrupt Thorfinn. It's where that is all he thinks about, it is all he works toward, but he is still so far from achieving that goal. And Askeladd, who takes him in, really only takes him in because he knows that Thorfinn's effective. And if he can keep jerking Thorfinn around, promising they'll get to do a duel so he can get revenge for his father's death, Askeladd will keep jerking him around because what else is Thorfinn gonna do? But Askeladd and the performance by his voice actor are both perfect. They work so well together. I loved this show. I didn't think I was going to because it was a historical drama. I'm not one for historical dramas. I'm not a fan of brooding, serious, angry protagonists. And Thorfinn was that in spades, but I was so compelled by what he was after. And so much of what makes the show worth watching is Askeladd. A very selfish character, but a very shrewd character, and he's very driven towards what his goals are, but he knows how to play the field to get what he wants. Season 2 is right around the corner. I think it actually comes out the day I'm filming. I can't recommend this show enough either. The dub version is out right now. But it's extremely just well done television. It's great writing from a character standpoint. Aki Watsuka as Thorkel the Tall is so good. He's so big and he's so strong. He throws a spear from like a half mile away and skewers 4 guys at once. It's incredible. I think about it every day. I did read a ton of really good books, and some of them I read even after I quit kind of keeping up with that. And the big one is Life Ceremony by Sayaka Murata, translated by Ginny Tapley Takamori. This is a collection of short stories that are all focused around kind of the macabre and the twisted when it comes to life and existence. All of these were 10 out of 10 bangers. There were no skips in this collection. It's so well done. I love the way Sayaka Murata writes because there's like, oh, I'm gross because I'm so quirky and eccentric. But I think she does a good job of like leaning into the horror of some of these circumstances where it just gets weird. And it gets weird in a good way. I really enjoyed what she brought to the table for this, and there's some good stories in here. I really, again, there were no skips at all, but if I had to pick a favorite, I do think First Rate Material, yeah, and Life Ceremony. So the title story and the first one, those are probably like my top 2. This got me out of a reading slump. It's so well done. It's so weird and creepy and gross and unsettling, and just everything works together in such a perfect way. And it weirdly enough has a lot of synergy with Star Eater by Kirsten Hall, which is something I read in September for S Month, where this is kind of a gloom dark fantasy that involves like conspiracies and a theocratic authoritarian rule, the city hovering above the ground, there are monsters below, and there's cannibalism, and it's all so well done. This cover is so eerie. I love the way it looks, how you have that graphic done up in it. I had a great time with this one. This was definitely on my like reread list because I had a lot of fun with it. I'm curious if Kirsten Hall's gonna write anything else in this universe or anything else like this, but I'm definitely gonna pay attention to it whenever it comes out. Another one that I really enjoyed this year was Silence by Shusaku Endo, and this was translated by William Johnston. So this follows Japanese missionaries going, or no, this follows Portuguese missionaries going to Japan because they think that their superior, their mentor, has apostatized himself, and they need to see if he's even still alive or if there's anything they can do to bring him back into the fold of Jesuit missionaries that they come from. And it was so interesting to get a story about Jesuit missionaries from the perspective of a Japanese Catholic. There are lots of themes at work that I really enjoy, and I wish that Christian writers, not necessarily like Christian book writers, but just Christian writers in general, weren't afraid of. Themes of doubt and the role Judas plays in the story of Christ and what it means to serve God in a place where it is very difficult to do that. From highbrow to lowbrow, I have Serpent and Dove by Shalby Mahurin. I really liked this. This was exactly my trash, and it was something that I could just breeze through because there was no true substance, but the substance that was there was just for me. Only for me. No one else was this written for. And this was great. I had a lot of fun with this one, kind of because it was trash. It follows Lou and Reed, no relation to the Velvet Underground, but Lou is a witch, Reed is a witch hunter, and they're forced to get married. Yeah, there's not much to say. I just enjoyed it a whole lot. There's not anything special going on. I think it's a little campy how big Reed is and how much they describe how big he is, but I understand the appeal of a man the size of a refrigerator in fiction. I used to think I was unique in that, and then that became like the trend, which I'm not complaining.
I need a big boy with polar bear arms, keeps me warm in the winter snowstorm. When chill is biting, but his jacket's unzipped. He bring in my groceries in just one trip.
Some of my favorites were the Shades of Magic trilogy, which I'm told there's another one coming out, which is even better. This follows Kel, Lila, and Holland to a degree. There are 4 different Londons. There's Red London, White London, Grey London, and Black London. And Black London was absorbed. All of the magic kind of like exploded there. They can't go to Black London anymore. Grey London is what we typically associate with regular London. White is where a lot of the issues are starting to form, and then there's Red London, where Kel is from. And there's lots of like magic and realm hopping, and I really like the way the magic is done. I like the setting because it's kind of that historical fantasy feel again. I really like Kel as a protagonist. Lila's a well-written protagonist, even though I hate her with a burning passion inside of my heart. It's well done. I like the intrigue. I like the adventure. I like the escapism. It's one novel where I do genuinely appreciate what escapism means and what it has to offer. It's a very impressive trilogy, and I blew through it in like a week. So it's extremely easy to read, easy to get into, and it's just a page turner. V.E. Schwab does a great job with the characters and with the action. I had such a good time. It is one that I would 100% reread in the blink of an eye. At the drop of a hat, I would reread that series. And I'm very excited to see what else could be coming from it. So that's a lot of fun. Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. This is another massive tome that I blew through in a very short amount of time because of how compelling and how well written it was. This follows a Korean family who lives under Japanese occupation, and they move to Japan and open a pachinko parlor. This is a story that follows multiple generations of the same Korean family and the struggles and hardships that they face as they try to maintain a sense of family, as they endure the struggles and the changes that they face in their life. I think it's a beautifully written novel. I'm not often one for literary style novels, but 2 of my favorites this year kind of were just that. And I am a huge fan of multi-generational, long, unfolding family dramas. And this one was a pinnacle, a peak, a triumph. So well done. Lastly, probably my favorite of the year, and it's been a long time since I think I've had a book be a favorite of the year, and that is Breasts and Eggs by Miyako Kawakami, translated by Sam Bett and David Boyd. So this follows Makiko, who travels to visit her sister and her sister's daughter. And her sister is contemplating breast augmentation surgery, and her niece is kind of in the throes of puberty. So the book, and if the title wasn't enough of a giveaway, is very focused on womanhood, transitioning into womanhood, what it means to be a woman, what it means to exist kind of in the space of women, what purpose it serves as a woman, what the expectations are, what the realities are. And it was tremendous. I loved this book. I think about it constantly. There are so many good passages in this book, and I love the way Kawakami writes everything. She has this tenderness and this poignancy that really shines through in this book, and I love it. I have some more of her books that I plan on reading, and I definitely want to go through her backlog because she's so talented. She's so great, and this is just a great novel. It's so cool, and I think she's a very insightful author, and I think she has a lot to say. And so one of the others that I have from her is All the Lovers in the Night. That's one that I hope to read this month, and I'll keep you posted on if it's any good, because if it's anything like this, I know it will be. It's another big book, but it was extremely rewarding as well. So now we're just gonna get to goof off and talk about the things I watched on YouTube. Obviously, there are things on YouTube that I watched consistently. Channels like Dylan Is in Trouble, I would watch anytime he would upload with Cindy, same way Tucker Osmond. They all have good, consistent content that's just very enjoyable. But these are some things that even if they're not uploading on the regular, they were still the highlights of my work day, of my lunch times, my evening times. I had a great time with the content that was made this year because there's a lot of good stuff out there. This first category I will call like weekly entertainment, the things we would watch every week on the dot, on schedule, and I want to highlight Unusual Memes and Daily Dose of Internet. So those are both curated channels, and really all three of the ones that I'm going to talk about for this bit are curated channels. But Unusual Memes are just that. They're unusual memes. Ones that I don't see everywhere, but are generally very weird, very funny, and very well edited. I have a great time with those compilations. Daily Dose of Internet is another well-curated channel, usually about 2 or 3 minutes in length. The host just kind of guides the viewers through interesting things found on the internet that week, and they're compiled in a very interesting way. I love the time-lapse shots that are shot from somewhere in the world. I have no idea where you get that kind of cloud coverage, but it's incredible stuff.
Hello everyone, this is your Daily Dose of Internet. I think this is the first time I've ever seen an alligator run like this.
But the third thing in this is Jimmy Here. And Jimmy Here, every Wednesday, without fail, posts If I Laugh, the Video Ends. I have a great time with them. It's so fun to watch the inside jokes on the channel evolve and grow and evolve again and turn into something else. But also sometimes they're just really funny clips there. And it's been a great honored tradition in our apartment household to watch those videos every Wednesday, and I very much enjoy it.
Oh no, Tofu, I can't do it.
Makes you feel good.
I still can't laugh, Tofu.
Let's try that.
No, I can't.
Aha. Goodbye for now.
Bye, Tofu. I couldn't do it yet. I'm not gonna give it up just for that.
So for this next one, it's important for you to know the phrase, "No one likes to know how the sausage is made," because this channel has built its entire foundation on proving that sentiment wrong, and that is Ordinary Sausage. Ordinary Sausage will take some godforsaken starting position and try to turn it into a sausage, in some ways carrying on the time-honored tradition of Will It Blend? Every burst, every spill, every 5 out of 5 Will It Blow is so entertaining. But as he's continued to make this content, he has also started to incorporate non-sausage episodes where he does something that's equally cursed, but doesn't necessarily involve making a sausage, like boiling a steak in eggs. It's some of the best content out there, and it's there for free.
What a terrible experience this whole thing has been.
In addition to learning how to make sausage, I am learning the sausage making of writing through channels like Alexa Dunn and Shaylin Wrights and Ellen Brock. They have all been extremely helpful in guiding me through my editing process. I've learned about the whole entirety of the writing process, from draft, character development, to editing, to finding an agent, to working through publishing, through Alexa Dunn, who is a published author and has a ton of industry knowledge and approaches these topics from a place of experience and wants to address these topics from a position of education. And she's very thorough, she's very realistic and blunt without being mean. And I've learned a lot about the agent finding process, about the querying process from her. And I think if you're interested in pushing your writing to a new level, she's a great place to start. Shaylin Wrights has lots of interesting topics on revision, on character motivation, and I've really enjoyed their content as well. But Shaylin has a lot of good content on how to find your voice as a writer, how to know when you're going the wrong direction and finding your voice. So I definitely recommend their stuff. But I think the highest amount of praise I can give is to Ellen Brock, who is a professional editor and basically helped me overhaul my entire work in progress. Her multi-part series on editing is an essential. It talks about, plot beats, about how to build the quarters of your novel, which helped me think about my novel in a way that makes a lot more sense. And so again, it was extremely helpful. I spent an entire plane ride dissecting her notes and then trying to apply it to my work, and it's made things so much easier. So save yourself the time and watch Ellen's videos if you were even a little curious about how to improve your writing this year. But of course, I can't watch educational content all the time, and that is where Razzle comes in. Razzle is one that I recommend with a big old asterisk, because if it's not your thing, it's insufferable, and I understand that it is. But basically, Razzle is another movie commentary channel where it's usually 4 guys, sometimes 3, but they get drunk and watch movies. That's it. It's funny. It makes me laugh. I have spent so many work afternoons watching and rewatching their Cinderella 2022 or 2021 film commentary. Listening to them just rag on James Corden, I could listen to that every day, and depending on how crappy of a work week it is, I do.
Idina!
Let it go, Idina!
Look at Adele Dazeem.
Wickedly talented.
Fucking lost my mind. Who is it?
I'm lost in his eyes.
Dude, I don't know if I'll ever be the same after this. I'm losing seconds off my life.
So a trio of channels that I've really enjoyed this year are Wendigoon, Mr. Gigi, and Scott Kramer. And I mentioned the 3 of them together because they've kind of crossed over in various capacities, which has been very fun. I especially want to highlight Wendigoon and Mr. Gigi's scary video swap. They did it last year, and I had been hoping they would do it again, and they did it again. Wendigoon primarily does long form deep dives into kind of esoteric, obscure history or into ARG content. Mr. Gigi does a whole smattering of things: film review, product review. They have a nice synergy, and so seeing them come together to swap scary videos was so much fun.
I'm sure they don't like all of them either. Yeah,
All
if
right.
only I could see it enhanced, though. Maybe it'd be a bit more scary.
Yeah, maybe if they threw some pixels, like made it purple and green.
Scott Kramer, he talks about running, he talks about building a murder mystery game for his family. But the video from Scott that I want to highlight this year is his video on small towns. He is from, I believe, North or South Dakota, from a very small town. And as someone who grew up in a town with 6,000 people, it felt nostalgic in a really homesick way. And I really enjoyed the time he took to make a video about that, because they're often overlooked. And I understand the appeal of living in one, but it is hard to go back. But his video, if I had to go back to a small town, his video would make that easier.
Just being next to that little lake in Barnesville almost made me cry, for goodness sake. These small towns mean a lot to me, and it's so cool that they find a way to celebrate themselves some way every single year.
Hellsing Abridged. I love abridged series, and it's rare that an abridged series can surpass its source material, but Hellsing Abridged comes very, very close. My cat's about to fall off the bed. 1 second.
Crisis averted.
But Hellsing Abridged is based on the Hellsing series, Hellsing Ultimate specifically, I believe, which is about Alucard, who works for the Hellsing organization. I think they all hunt vampires, because then you also have Father Alexander Anderson of the Iscariot organization, who is incredible. I love that character. I love seeing him just looming down the hall with his giant bayonet blades. Incredible. Character design, 13 out of 10. But the humor in the series is immaculate. It's so funny. And I went back and rewatched it, and that series is, probably 10 years old at this point, and it's still so funny. It's still so quotable. And so many of the quotes that I remember from back then, I still remember to this day. The humor is great, though do keep in mind it came out 10 years ago. So grain of salt as you watch it. But if you like bloody, gory, profane adventure series, it might be up your alley.
Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. You got me a present!
And the thing I want to wrap up with is Jet and this other channel called Snapcube. They also had a weird amount of synergy this year. Jet and Snapcube are both oriented around the Sonic games. Jet will redub sequences and do an incredible job. It sounds ripped right from the games, but it also just is so perfect. Things like Shadow calling Sonic a beta male.
You're a beta male, Sonic.
But the Jet videos are great. They're very short and it's easy to just kind of binge their content. And then Snapcube does real-time dubs of the games where they play the game and then they have a bunch of people hang out and redub all of the scenes. I'm sure you've seen Eggman's announcement.
I come to make an announcement. Shadow the Hedgehog's a bitch-ass motherfucker. He pissed on my fucking wife.
That's where that comes from, and it's funny every single time. But they did Shadow the Hedgehog this year, and that was also just fantastic. The performances are all extremely well done, and it's very compelling, and it's the kind of content that I wish I could write. But it's for now, it's just something that I very much enjoy doing, and it is also something that I've had on during the day. That's where a lot of these YouTube channels come from, is it's just, I work 40 hours a week or more, and I like having stuff on in the background, and that's where all of these channels go. And this segues beautifully for me. I hope that's where this video is for you too. I hope you're watching this while you're working on something and that you're able to get a lot done, because looking at the timestamp for the sound, this is a very long video and I didn't mean for it to be, but I think it's important to talk about the things that we enjoyed. What were your favorite parts of 2022? What are the best media things that you consumed that made you happy, that inspired you, that will carry you into 2023 and will hopefully give rise to more things that you enjoy? Let me know. I am genuinely curious. If you watched any of the things I mentioned, if any of the things I mentioned sound cool to you, let me know that too. I don't know what I'm going to be doing this year. I gave up. I'm not going to make anything, I'm not going to read anything, I'm not going to write anything, I'm just going to wait it out and see when I snap to actually focus and do some things. I do have actual video topics I want to explore, and we'll see where that goes. But in the meantime, double check that your laundry is done. You may need to move things over to the dryer. You don't want things to sit in their own wet for too long. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're having a lovely, lovely evening, and I will see you all next time.
Dimension 20 does Regency romance, love letters written to Korean homelands, witch hat, black clover, and abridged house sings. These were a few of my favorite things. Eggman calls Shadow
bitch-ass motherfucker.
8 foot tall man voiced by Akio Watsuka. Time travel, hot priests, and decaying kings. These were a few of my favorite things. When my job sucks, when the night's cold, when I'm feeling low, I simply curl up